Hello and welcome to this week's lessons on jQuery events. The website you're looking at right now is called overapi.com, and it's a collection of online cheat sheets for different languages, including jQuery, but also HTML, CSS, Ruby, Red, PHP, and so forth. It's just a very convenient location to go to in case you need to have clarification about certain aspect of a language you want to use. Let's say, for example, we go to the jQuery page. And we'll see in a second. Here it is, this online cheat sheet. And let's say I wanted to use, I remember there's a way to manipulate the CSS in jQuery, but don't remember exactly how or what it is called. So I come to this section that says CSS, and I see there's something like add class. So, but I'm not exactly sure how that works. I can click on this link, and it takes me directly to the official documentation on add class on the jQuery.com website, and I can read up about it. I can see some examples, and just very, very convenient. Also, we had the same thing for HTML or CSS. So if I go to CSS, for example, you can see that has another online cheat sheet. And let's say I don't remember exactly what is the shorthand for border. So if I click on that, it takes me directly to the documentation for CSS, and it's the Mozilla Foundation, the mozilla.org website. This might not be as handy. Typically, I don't really go to this website for CSS. I find that other websites are more convenient, but what I find is that to have all the list of the different CSS properties, very handy to have on one page. But as I repeat, I mean, it's worth remembering this website because it conveniently locates all resources in one page. It's just easier to remember one website that can take you to many different other places than remembering all the different websites. Now for our lessons, let's go to the folder, and the first thing we do is change the name. I'm going to call it jQuery events. And I'm going to open this with my code editor, and I'm also going to open this with Firefox. And nothing in here. I remember that the first thing we do, let's go back to this, we're going to change the title right away. So I'm going to call it jQuery events. Okay. Before we get to jQuery itself, I want to put something inside the body. So I would like to have a button that I click on and a paragraph with an idea of output where my output is going to come. So I'm going to come into the body section. I'm going to indent. I'm going to say button, and I'm going to say click on me. I'm going to close my button. And below that, I'm going to have a paragraph with an idea of output. And it will have nothing in it because it's basically a container that I create, so I know when I want to have an output, I have the paragraph already created there. Okay, so let's see something we already seen last week. Let's see the mouse event, the click event. And that's one of the several events associated with a mouse. If you looked at the handout I gave you in this week's folder, you know that with a mouse you can click, double click, you can move the mouse, there is mouse up, mouse out, and so forth. So these are all different events, and your book does a pretty good job in explaining how and they are used and how you can use them. The best way to learn something is always to experiment. We're going to stick with something basic for this class, but feel free to experiment a little bit and see how you can get a grasp of that. So I have my elements right here. So I'm going to come inside the head section and inside the document ready function. So what do I want to happen? In jQuery, you have to think in 3 steps. First step is to select, choose your selector. Second step is to associate an event with that. And the third step is to create a function that's going to be passed to that event. So what do I select? Well, think about it in regular English. When the user clicks on a button, I want something to happen. So I had to change that a little bit, the syntax. So when the user clicks on a button, so what is being clicked on? The button. So that's my selection. So I'm going to use a $sign and I'm going to use button inside. No hash or no dot in front of it because it's neither an ID nor a class. It's just an element. The next thing, I have to associate an event. That's step number 2. The event is click. So I have to enter dot click, open and close parentheses, semicolon after. Now I have to, that's the second step. Third step is to pass a function to the event. And it goes inside the parentheses. So I'm going to enter the word function, open and close parentheses, space, open and close curly braces. Then I'm going to open up the curly braces or separate them. And that's where I'm going to put the code that is going to be executed when a visitor clicks on a button. So what do I want to do? I want some text to appear inside the output paragraph and just saying you clicked on me. So what do I have to select? I have to select the output paragraph. So I'm going to come inside here. I'm going to use the hash because output is an ID. And I want the text inside the paragraph to be, so I'm going to use text, a string that says, you clicked on me. This is where I find that most of the students have a hard time. Okay, so when do you select what? Think about it from the outside to the inside. You select what the user is acting on. In this case, the button. What does a user do? It clicks. So the selector is button, the action is click. Inside there is a function. What's going to happen in that function? You decide that. Okay, when the user clicks on a button, I want some text to show up inside the paragraph with an ID of output. And that text simply says, you clicked on me. So let me save this and go back to the browser and make sure that I have Firebug open to catch any mistakes I might have made. I'm going to reload this. Okay, I have my button that says click on me. And here it says, you clicked on me. That's my paragraph. Now I'm going to style this paragraph a little bit so it makes it a little bit more obvious. So let me go back to the text, to the code editor. And inside the head section, I'm going to use style. And I'm going to get a hold of my output. So this is plain CSS. I'm going to give it padding of 20 pixels and I'm going to give it a background color light gray. Okay, I'm going to reload this and I guess I'm missing the X or the PX for pixels. Go back to the browser. I'm going to reload this. Okay, here's my paragraph. It's empty now. If I say click on me, there you go. It's a little bit more clear that that's what's happening. The text goes inside that paragraph. So clicking is one event. The other event we're going to look at is double clicking. So I'm going to go back inside my document ready function. And the first thing I want to do first, I'm just going to add a paragraph. I'm sorry, comment. I'm going to say mouse events. Now I'm going to copy these 3 lines and I'm going to paste it just below, making sure that all my code is nicely organized. So I want something else to happen when we double click. So the action is still being performed on the button, but instead of just clicking, it's double click. So the event is double DBL click. and I want the text to be outputted to the paragraph with an idea of output. But instead of just saying you clicked on me, I'm going to say you double clicked on me. Or just to make even different, oh, you double clicked. Save that, go back to the browser. I'm going to reload. So if I click once, it says you clicked on me. If I click twice, it says you double clicked. Double click. I guess, oh my God, the spelling's really terrible. All right, let me go back and fix that for a second. I guess I can type and talk at the same time. All right, that might be a little bit better. Go back to this. All right, click once, click twice. Now, when you, if I just double clicking and clicking twice, it's very foggy, the difference. So if I just click once, we get that. I double click fast, I get that. I double click a little bit more slowly, I still get you double clicked. I click even more slowly, it just says you clicked on me. So you can play around with this a little bit to see the difference. So the difference is speed. The speed that has to be the interval between one click and the next one is something that's been set up by the browser. So there must be a certain amount of time, maybe 1 second or whatever else, that is being set up in the browser. So if the difference in time, the interval between one click and the next one is less than, let's say, a second, then that action, that event, it will be considered a double click. If it's longer, it will be 2 separate clicks. Once again, if I click once, that's what it gives me. I click twice, but slowly, still gives me that. If I click twice, a little bit faster, then it tells me you double clicked. Just something to be aware of. Okay, let's see something else. Let's look at another event called the mouse over. So when we go over something, we can associate a function with that. To make that a little bit more clear, I'm going to wrap my paragraph inside a div and indent everything nicely. And I'm going to style that div so that it makes it a little bit easier to see it. So I'm going to come inside the head section, inside the style tag. I'm going to just style the all divs. I only have one, so I can just use the element name. I'm going to give it some padding. Oh, I guess 20 pixels again. And the background color, we'll make it yellow to make it very visible. So let's see what it looks like. Just gonna reload this for a second. Something didn't quite work out. Go back to the code. Div, padding. What did I do? Oh yes, once again, 20x instead of 20 pixels. So I think that was the problem. Let me go back to the browser and reload. There we go. So now it's you can see the div very clearly. So the yellow is the big div, and the gray is my paragraph, which in this particular case is empty because there's nothing in it. But when I click on the button, there's new content being provided there. All right, so let me go back to the code editor. So we want to experiment a little bit with the mouse over event. So what are we going to go over with the mouse? The div. So our selector is the div. So we're going to use a $sign and select the div. And we're going to use, so that's step 1. Step 2, the event, which is mouse over. Open and close parentheses, semicolon. Then we're going to pass a function to this event. That's step number 3. So I'm going to enter the word function, open and close parentheses, space, open and close curly braces, and then we're going to separate the curly braces. It's really very good habit to do this way because, as you can see, there's a lot of parentheses, curly braces. Before you know it, get all confused. So if you set up your structure at the beginning, it's much easier to keep your code organized and to make less mistakes. All right, so what do I want to do? So when we go over the div, I want the div to change its background color. So what am I selecting in this case? I'm saying when I go over a div, I want that div to change its background. So to select that div, I can just use this. So $, parenthesis, this. And I'm going to use CSS to change its background color. And I'm going to change it to pink. I'm going to save that and come back to the browser, reload. Now the div is yellow. When I go over it, it changes to pink. And it stays pink. Notice that once I change its color, it won't go back to the other color. So because this changes the CSS, if I want to something else to happen or the background color to change again when I move away from the div, I have to set it up. So if we use mouse over to style the div, I have to use mouse out to style the div in a different way. So those are the complementary action. Mouse over when you come over an element, and mouse out when you hover away from this element. So go back to the code editor. So I'm going to add a line. So I'm going to select the same thing. Actually, I'm going to just copy it. I'm going to copy these 3 lines and paste them below. And I'm going to change mouse over for the second case to mouse out. And I'm going to change the background color. I'm going to make it green. So when I go over the div, with mouse over, the background is going to be changed to pink. When I go away, when I move my mouse away from the div, the background is going to turn to green, unless I make some mistakes. And we'll find out soon enough. So I'm going to reload this. So initially the div has a color of your background color yellow. That's what we set in the CSS. When I go over it with the mouse, it turns to pink. And when I move away, it turns to green. And apparently I did not make any mistakes because it worked. And when I click on it, that's what it shows. And I can keep on playing this game. Go over it's pink, go away it's green, and so forth. Now you can have a shorthand for this behavior. Basically, what this is the hover behavior. And we are going to rewrite these 6 lines into a more compact form. So just below that, I'm going to say $, I'm going to select the div again. And instead of using mouse over or mouse out, I can combine them by using the hover event. Inside the hover event, you're going to have 2 functions. So I'm going to enter function, open and close parentheses, open and close curly braces, comma, and then again the same thing, function, open and close parentheses, space, open and close curly braces, because you have to pass 2 functions to the hover event. And now I'm going to reorganize this code so it's a little bit easier to understand. So now I'm going to indent this, and I'm going to put the other function on its own line, and I'm going to separate the curly braces. And I can just copy and paste from the code above. So for the first function, I want exactly the same thing to happen. It's exactly the same behavior. When we hover over that div, I want the background to change color and turn to pink. So I'm going to copy that and paste it inside. And I'm going to comment this line out so I don't have the same thing happening twice. And when we move away from the div, when we hover away from, in this case, the div, I'm going to turn the background color to green. So I'm going to copy that and paste it inside the second function and comment out this line. So we should see exactly the same behavior. It's just a more compact way of writing the same code. There's something, oh yes, I just want to make sure here. No, I was looking for the end of this event, the hover event, and I want to make sure that I have it's very clear. So I'm going to put the closing parenthesis and the semicolon on its own line and indent it. So just by scanning my code, I can see very clearly that whatever has started here is terminated here. I'm going to save that, go back to the browser, reload. And as I said, we should see the same behavior. So when I go over this div, the background turns pink. When I leave, it turns green. And it keeps the same thing, keeps on happening. So we're doing the same thing with a slightly different syntax. Instead of using mouse over and mouse out, we use the hover event. Let's go back to the code. Okay, now let's look at some. So these are all mouse events, and we also have window events, form events, and keyboard events. I wanted to look at the form events now. So I'm going to add a couple lines and enter comment and say form events. So I'm going to create a form in the body. I'm going to create a space for that, and just to save time, I'm going to grab the code that I already prepared, so that I don't have to type it line by line. It's a form, very simple form that has two fields, name and phone. Go back to this. I'm going to paste it. There we go. I guess I pasted in the wrong place. Did I? No, I did. The right place. And I want to make sure that this is indented correctly. So I'm going to tab just what's inside of the form. That didn't work out very well. Oh yeah, I can't do that with this code editor. This is possible with another code editor, but this one I still haven't figured out how to do a whole chunk of code. But basically I just wanted to have the code inside the form indented with a tab, just to make very clear, very visibly obvious what is contained inside of what. And that's what I'm stressing in your assignments all the time. The indentation has to reflect the logical organization of your code. That's the only reason why indent. It doesn't make any difference to the browser if your code is indented or not, but it makes a world difference to you as a programmer when you look back at your code, and to me when I look at your assignment. So just by looking at this, I see very clearly what is being contained inside of what. Let's take a peek of what this looks like. Here is my form. I could just give it a little bit more. I could style a little bit more, but I'm not going to bother with that right now. But basically, I have a field to enter the name, a field to enter the phone, and a submit button. Now, what I wanted to show you, this value, this access, is to indicate how the syntax or the formatting of the phone number should be to the user. I'm trying to show to the user how I should enter the phone number. Sometimes for the area code you have parentheses, sometimes you enter all the digits one next to each other, but that's the way I would like the user to enter the phone number. So I'm indicating that, and I can do that by entering the value. So if this is my input field for the phone, the value is this bunch of X's that you're seeing. But what I like to happen when the user clicks on that value, on that field, I don't want the user to have to highlight that and delete it. It's just an extra step. I just want to make it a little bit easier for the user. So when it clicks on that field, that default information, I would like it to disappear. So we have a way to do that with jQuery. So let me reload this for a second. There we go. And let's go back to the code. So when the user clicks on an input field, I want the default value that's there to be removed. So what do I have to select? Listen again. When the user clicks on an input field, well, then I have to select an input field. And I'll do that with a $sign and the word input. There we go. And we said when the user clicks on it, but with the forms, you don't really actually use click. So what the event we are looking for is called focus. This event fires when you either tab or click on a form element, because you also have to think that people, different users use different ways of getting to an input field. And if you didn't have a mouse, for example, and you had to tab to that input field, well, if you associated this behavior only with the click event, then it wouldn't work out when people just tab to that field. So it's better to use the event focus, because it then applies to both circumstances. Either a user clicks on that field or tabs to it. So we're going to enter focus, open and close parentheses, semicolon. Then we associate a function to that goes inside, or we pass a function to the event, so that goes inside the parentheses, open and close parentheses after the word function, open and close curly braces, and we're going to separate the curly braces. So what do we want to happen? So when a user clicks on that input field, we want the default value in that input field to disappear. So we want the action to be performed to the same element we selected. So we can use just a this selector, and you get a hold of a value of an input field using val, which means the value for input fields, and we want to clear the value. So we're going to enter a string there, but it's going to be an empty string. So just a set of open and close parentheses with nothing in it. I'm going to save that, and if I did this correctly, I'm going to reload this. So when I click in this field, the default value of all these x's should disappear, and it does. And then I can type something normally. Let's say I want to also change the color of the text that goes into the input field. So what we could do, we could add something. So because the action is performed on the same object, on the same selector, or on the same element, I can just keep on adding here. So I can use CSS, open and close parentheses. So this is method chaining, if you remember from last week. So I'm going to change the color. I'm going to change it to, I don't know, let's make it blue. So I'm going to go back to the browser. I'm going to reload. And I know not there. Oh, there we go. Until I see the default value. So now when I click on the phone input field, not only the value is clear, but when I start typing, my font is blue. Let's look at the window events. So I'm going to add a link just below the form. I'm going to add a link, and I'm going to put it inside the paragraph. And I'm going to add a link to the school. I'm going to call it YCCC. That's going to be the text. Something's not quite right there. Something's not quite right. Oh, yes. The quotes weren't balanced. And I'm going to close my link and close my paragraph. We'll see if this is correct. Let me see first if that's, I did something wrong. The color looks a little bit funny. So I'm going to reload this. Okay, I have a link, and click on it, and it should take me to, yeah, it does. So everything is working fine. So for whatever reason, I just thought it wasn't working fine. Okay, so when one of the events that was fired when I clicked on that link, it's the, was a window event, and it's called the window unload event. So I can capture that particular moment and make something happen. So I want to just have an alert box that comes up that says goodbye before a user actually gets to the new page. So I'm going to go back to the code editor. So I'm going to enter a couple lines. I'm going to say window events. So I'm going to select the window I'm actually not sure if I need the, yes, I don't need the quotes for that. Just the word window. And the event I'm going to capture is unload. So when we navigate away from this page being displayed, I want something to happen. So I'm going to enter the word function, open and close parentheses, open and close curly braces, separate the curly braces. I want an alert box to pop up that says goodbye. Save that, go back to the browser and reload. So now when we click on the YCCC link, the alert box comes up, and then when I click OK button, I can go to the new page. But also I could prevent the browser from actually moving away from the website, and that's that prevent default method that you might have seen in your textbook. So if I didn't want to let the user navigate away from our website, I can do that. That's not very good to do that, because it's not very, you should make your website as user friendly as possible, and certainly not capture, make the user a captive of the page. It has been done, it is still done by a lot of websites. Here I'm only showing you how to do it. So I'm going to capture the event, so I'm going to prevent normal behavior. So when a user clicks on a link that takes me somewhere else, I don't want that link to bring the user to another page. So I'm going to select any link, and I'm going to associate the click event to it. Inside the click, I'm going to pass a function, an anonymous function, open and close parentheses, open and close curly braces. But before I go on, inside those parentheses, I'm going to enter the word event. And sometimes you just see as an E or EVT or EVNT. Whatever you call this parameter inside the parentheses, it's up to you. It makes sense to call it event, but you can give it any name you want. The important thing that you actually do put a name in there. Now I'm going to say event, or whatever you enter here. So if I enter EVT or EVNT or anything else, I have to use the same word right here. And I'm going to say associate a prevent default behavior to it, or method, just like that. I'm going to save it. So what this is going to do, prevent the browser from loading a new page, and the user will be captive inside our page. Go back to the browser. I'm going to navigate back and reload. So I'm going to click on this. Something's not quite right. I have to see, what did I do wrong? Window unload. Let me comment this out right here. I think that's a problem. Go back to this. Somehow I can't. Now we're back, okay. So now I click on this link, but nothing happens. But why did I have to comment out that line? Let me put it back again and see why. Oh, because that's why. Because so what's happening? I didn't think about it. So when we reload, we are navigating away from the present page, and so this event fires. That's what it is. So just to avoid that firing all the time, I'm going to comment that out. So that can be really very annoying behavior. I'll go back to the browser, once again reload, and yes, I click on my link and it just doesn't let me go anywhere. I'm captive, so that this link doesn't work. I'm a captive of this page. The other thing I wanted to show you is the event object. Sometimes it's a little bit funny to understand this. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna capture the movement of the mouse and display the X and Y coordinates inside the output box. So let's go back to the code. I'm going to enter a couple lines, and I'm going to enter a comment. I'm going to say event object. Okay, so when we move the mouse over the div, I want to capture, or let's say when we move the mouse over any part of the body, I want to capture the X and Y coordinates. So what do we have to select? I said when I move the mouse over any part of the body, so the selector has to be the body. So $, and the word body. And what do I do when I move the mouse? So the event is mouse move, open and close parentheses, semicolon. And I want to associate a function with that. So I'm going to enter function, open and close parentheses, open and close curly braces. And I need to capture the event. So I'm going to enter the word event inside the parentheses. Then I'm going to separate the curly braces. Okay, so I can capture the X and Y position of the mouse. So I'm going to create a variable called X, and I'm going to say event page X. That's the X position of the mouse. And I'm going to create a variable called Y, and it's going to be the event page Y position. And now I'm going to output that information to the paragraph with an ID of output. So I'm going to select that. Output. And I'm going to place some text in there. So I'm going to use text. And inside that text, I'm going to create a string. So I'm going to open my quotes. I'm going to say X equal. I'm going to close my quote. I'm going to add the variable X. Then I'm going to add something else, another bit of string. I'm going to create a couple lines of a couple spaces. I'm going to say Y equal, and I'm going to add to this the Y coordinate. So if I did everything correctly, this every time I move my mouse over the body, I'm going to display the X and Y positions, and the value of the X and Y position is going to be constantly updated. I'm going to save that and go back to the browser. I'm going to reload. Okay, so you can see that. Why does it do only over the div? Interesting. Let me go back to this. I selected the body, so I should have that output happening anywhere when I move anywhere over the body. Try that again. So when I go, okay, here we go. For whatever reason, I guess it was my mouse that wasn't responding to this very well. It just doesn't respond as fast as when it's over the div for whatever reason. So this is all the body, but it moved. I guess I have to go a little bit more slowly, but you see that it's working. So the X and Y positions are constantly updated as I move my mouse around. I guess if I move too fast, no, it seems to be working fine. So I guess maybe because it's an optical mouse, sometimes it's just, and my desk is not very smooth. Maybe that's the reason why. I don't understand why sometimes it's not updating as well. It seems to be doing better when I go up and down. I want to go sideways. Yeah, sideways is not really, sideways is not really changing, but it's only when I go up and down. Interesting. Okay. Okay, that's it for the for this week's lecture. I wanted to show you what the assignment might look like. So I'm asking you, let me get rid of Firebug here. I'm asking you to create a page that has three thumbnails and a larger image that is a larger version of one of the thumbnails, plus a title that somehow is the title of the image. And when you go over the different thumbnails, I want the big image to be automatically updated, and I also want some kind of a border around the image. If you use border, I want to tell you that your thumbnails will be shifting, so I would use outline, and the outline can be added around anything, and its dimensions are not being changed. So as you go over each one of the thumbnails, not only the image is being changed, but also the title over that. And I think that's it for this week. Until next time.